He is an average student. In fact, failed one time in his degree, where he has done his normal degree initially, but now he is the owner of Sensor Networks, which is 70 million worth at this point of time. So he has given lectures in Harvard University as well. Let us meet Mr. Subash Challa. Hi Subash, how are you?
Very nice to meet you.
Thanks for your time, Subash. So first of all, congratulations for, I think Sensor Networks has been listed in ASX, is it?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, congratulations. So Subash, what is the story behind Sensor Networks, and what made you to start this kind of company?
Company Sensor Networks was actually formed as a spin-off from University of Technology, Sydney. So UTS is one of the leading universities in Sydney. And I was invited to become a professor. I was one of the youngest professors in Australia. It's interesting that I actually missed many years of study because I failed early on, but I caught up, not only caught up, but I could become one of the youngest professors in Australia. So normally to become a professor, you have to go from a researcher, research fellow, postdoc, then you become a lecturer, then you become a senior lecturer, then you become associate professor.
Yeah, there are many stages.
All stages, and usually it is a 20-30 year journey. And becoming a professor is usually considered a culmination of career for many academics. In my case, I was a postdoc for a few years, and then I was straight a professor. I never was a lecturer or other things. And it's a great thing in Australia that they could recognize talent and bring it in. So one of the biggest agendas that was driving university to bring me in, and for me to go to that university also, was to clearly do a startup. Because there have been a big transformation going on in academic world where doing research and writing papers which only you can understand or your students can understand and nobody can use it, has become a habit or kind of a routine in most academic institutions. So most of the leading scientists and ambitious ones were saying, can we take an idea that you are thinking about and create an enterprise around it which can add value to the businesses who use your technology and also create employment at the same time. So I had a huge passion for my for starting a business that can sustain itself.
Okay.
Can it go from an idea to a self-fulfilling enterprise?
Okay.
That experiment was big on my mind, and the inspiration of that comes from my father, which I can explain a bit more about. But that was driving me to, I went to the university with an agenda to do a startup. I inspired the students and staff around them to think of a startup from the day I joined. And in 3 years after I joined, we actually did the spin-off.
So you never have an intention to teach as a lecturer or so. So your main intention is to start up as an entrepreneur and want to...
Actually, I did a lot of teaching when I did my PhD and as a postdoc.
Okay.
When I was studying and doing PhD, I used to teach 4 different units in a university, like electronic communications. You name the subjects in electrical engineering, I taught every one of them. But I did a lot of those teaching, and I did a lot of research. I wrote a lot of papers, but I did in a very short period of time.
Okay.
And the next natural step from that would be to become a professor and retire. But I was too young to retire, so I said if I got an opportunity to really influence.
May I know at what age you retired as a professor?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously didn't retire, but I became a professor at 32. And normally it's like, people take quite a bit of time. So I'm honored and privileged and somewhat lucky. There are many things have to go in our way. But that's where the journey of Sensen began.
So before going further, what is your background, Subash? Like, where you came from, and I heard that, as I told you before, you got failed in your exams also.
Yeah.
So there is a tremendous, change in your studies I have seen when I'm getting to know about you. You failed in your degree, and after that, within 10 years, you promised your father. I heard a lot of stories about you. So, and within 10 years, you again, you challenged your father, you're going to tell in Harvard University, you're going to, teach. So you did the same thing. So, what exactly happened in your, student age, and what's your background?
I'm from, Hyderabad, mostly brought up there. I was born in a small village called Tangutur near Alir in Warangal. My father is, obviously very, he's educated himself, but he wanted all of us to be excelling in whatever we do. But I'm pretty much disappointing him most of the time because I had so much distractions, like, in India you have, playing kites, playing marbles, playing things, everything other than studies is what you would, you were getting fascinated with. And also I think education in Indian schools, at least at the time when I was looking at and the particular schools I was going in, were somewhat boring. So in the class I couldn't concentrate at all. When teacher teaches, my mind just wanders off and I'm dreaming something else. So studies was difficult to excel. So what my father did was he would teach me every day. In the morning, he would do tuitions at home. So with all the people whom he would do tuitions, he would make me sit along with them and teach me two subjects, mathematics and English. And his belief was, if I'm good in those two, I can recover in anything.
Okay.
So pretty much I was not doing well in anything except moderately well in those subjects, and I was just, going through my life. So, time comes when I completed my year 12, like, in those days it used to be called intermediate, and we had to start looking at where do we go after that. And I started writing the entrance exams like everybody writes, and I was just not getting in. My marks were not just enough, and so I was having a lot of difficulty to get admissions. So I couldn't get into any engineering college at all in all of Andhra Pradesh. And then I applied for at least science degrees because that's what was at least somewhat interesting to me. I couldn't get in any science degree. So I got into Nizam College with a Bachelor of Arts.
Okay.
And a Bachelor of Arts in Maths, Economics and Statistics.
Okay.
Because at least I said, if not science, I'll at least do some maths.
Yeah.
And in year 1, I actually failed all 3 subjects because I kind of felt like I don't care about studies, all kinds of things were going on in my mind. And when I did that, I saw the depression and sadness, if you want, in my father's, face and his feeling. And he only came and said, look, if you are a dumb, brainless or not clever, I wouldn't bother. But I think you have immense potential. You are a very clever guy. If only you can focus on it, you could do something. More importantly, I loved my father a lot. I had a lot of respect for him. Although I'm not doing well in studies as well as he wanted, but I absolutely had a lot of affection and love. And he has similarly a lot of affection for me. And I think I would go down to that I didn't want to disappoint a person who would, who loves me so much. And me doing well in studies mattered so much to him. So the only objective for my life became, how can I make this man happy? And that was a trigger point. I said, I don't want to see you sad. Just give me 10 years. I'll go to Harvard. I didn't know how the hell I'm going to do it, but I just said it. And just to make him happy. But then I went back and thought about it, and I really committed myself. After that, I was just in a room, got all the books, and just put it in front of me and just went through it. And in 2 years later, I got into JNTU in electrical engineering, and I really understood the subject. Now, unlike many people who might just study, get marks and go through, this is now I am starting fresh. So I really understood what the subjects are, and I really loved it too, and that became the basis.
But what kind of effort you put in at your young age? Challenging is not just happens. Of course, if you whoever challenges to someone doesn't happen, until unless you put your effort, wholehearted effort into it.
Yeah, so because I failed in the university, BA, I really had nowhere to go. So I just stayed home. So for me, the day will start 4 a.m., 5 a.m. I would go for a run, and then come back, and that's it. And I'm studying. I study till afternoon. I sleep for a couple of hours. I study again, and that keeps going on until night. I sleep again. So there's no friends, no nothing. It just 18 hours a day, just study. That's it. Until I get in. There's only one vision I had. I had to get into an engineering degree. So it took me third attempt, and a lot of my friends already finished 2 years of their engineering, and they're going on, and I'm sitting here trying to make it into the competitive exam. It was very tough because obviously all your friends were thinking you are good for nothing, you are left behind. So it was. There was only one way to get out of it, which I had to get through the exams. So it took, time was, there's nothing else I was doing other than just study. That's it. That was 18 hours, 20 hours a day, that's all I did.
So after studies, after completion of your engineering, bachelor's of engineering, so after that you came Australia. How Australia thing happened? When did you came to Australia? What made you to choose Australia at that point of time?
There are two things that happened actually there. My father had a very close friend of him whom he used to admire in studies. He did a PhD in University of Melbourne in chemical engineering. So I knew about Australia and my father's fascinations for it. But more importantly, I had a girlfriend at the time who was walking around somewhere, and she said, look, Australia has these interesting courses, why don't you go there? So I just, took her word and went and attended that thing, and then, I got tricked into Australian marketing a little bit, if you want, at the time. They said, this is the best university in Australia, which was QUT, they said. I didn't have any idea. But I said, I would rather go to the best of something somewhere than just, swim around going nowhere. I applied to US universities at the time. I was not getting into Harvard or these kind of things. So, but then I didn't want to go to an average university there. So I would rather go to a best university in Australia than a know-nothing university in US. That was my agenda when I was thinking about how to strategize to go to the top universities. So those are the couple of really interesting coincidences.
So your girlfriend has inspired you to choose?
Yeah, definitely. At the time I was very depressed. I was trying to look at what is the best place to go to, and I was aiming very high. And so the strategy was go to the best place in Australia than an average place in US, and it actually worked out. That was a brilliant strategy, okay? And it actually came through.
So after coming to Australia, you directly you did which course you were into then?
So I came here to do a 1-year master's course. So this was a kind of half the strategy that you would come up with when you don't fully know all the moving pieces in how you grow in academics. So I came here, thought I'll do 1-year course. It's one of the best universities as they advertised it, which is not quite true, but I just came anyway. And I thought I'll do 1-year course, then for PhD I'll go to US. But when I came here and I understood how the system works, in Australia we could do a PhD in 3 years, if you are good. Maybe 4 years, depending on, or it could take 7-8 years for some people. But if you're good, you can actually do it within 3 years. If I go to US, you pretty much start again at masters and finish, and you can't bypass anything. So you had to wait 5 or 6 years before you do it. So I compared that, and I got I was offered a scholarship based on the performance I was having in Australia in that master's course. And they said, we'll count the masters that you already done, and in 2 years more you'll get a PhD. So that said, that looks like a good deal. So I kind of said, well, I'll continue on in Australia. So I came for a 1-year course, but it kind of progressed on from there. And I started meeting some extraordinary scientists. And interestingly, in Australia, there are some amazing top researchers and academics who come here for lifestyle. Like they are probably really big in US, but they don't like to live there, and or they thought Australia is a great place to go.
Okay.
So as long as you plug into one or two of them, and our ability to follow their research and contribute, it opens the doors. Basically, that's how it became. That's effectively turned out to be, the process in which I ended up doing PhD here, and because I was in contact with these amazing professors, they also introduced me to professors at Harvard. So they came to know about my research, so I could go there as well later and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, good. Subash, when you compare with Indian education system with Australian education system, what's the major difference if I ask you?
So I want to know whether you're asking the question for the university education, or is it schooling as well?
With any part of the education system, whether it's the schooling or the university, because you told in your conversation that the best part here we found is like we got to meet a lot of professors and a lot of people, and the kind of quality education system it's actually helped you a lot.
I would say generally in the Western education compared to what was going on at the time when we were studying. And I'm not as much in tune with today's education system in India, but I would expect it is still similar. Here, they give a lot of freedom and to really learn and do many different things. In India, it is very regimented. There is a particular route you have to follow, and you can't deviate from that. Here, the breadth and possibility for you to go and learn from very diverse things, is a characteristic of most Western education systems, and it's true in Australia as well. And in the context of university education, the emphasis is more about learning by practice. So if you see a graduate coming out of a university here, an undergraduate I mean, they are much more ready to work than what I expect in India. The reason is India has a lot more bookish knowledge, and a very regimented way they do it. Here they try to build it, experiment it. And that is embedded into the course structure.
Right.
And again, university to university, there are always differences.
Yes.
But learning and understanding and ability to do something physically, employing those ideas, is a lot more emphasized here. And where in India, I always found people trying to get a lot of marks by memorizing it or by using their brain. So typically, our guys need maybe 6 months to a year before they can convert and beat the people here. But generally, our IQs are pretty good, and the raw intelligence is still pretty high. But the education system itself slows you down because there's emphasis on marks, and how you try to promote yourself as intelligent is by more marks. And here it is more about, do you know something? And that's what I see in the university level. And with my kids growing up in the schooling, and I'm observing how they are studying, and my kids are almost through the schooling now. They're at year 11, 12, like that. They have an enormous breadth of subjects. Like my daughter does psychology, philosophy, English literature at the year 11, 12 level.
She is doing all this.
All these. And my son does, a different set of things like physics and other things, which we are generally familiar with in India. But your ability to have this two kids going through the same schooling system with a choice you can make that wide, I think it's brilliant, because learning should never be very narrow, regimented, like you have to learn only these things.
Right.
So in some ways, I'm pretty sure India, there are definitely schools there which are innovating and trying to make it interesting and widespread. But I would say, as a general principle, this is how they are different.
Right.
So coming back to your studies, and when you started lecturing in the college, so after that you started your startup.
Yeah.
So from the starting, Do you have in your mind that you want to start only this sensor technology, whatever it's related to? Is it the only aim for you, or just it clicked on and you started this?
As I said, I was admiring people who start a company from ideas and create a self-sustaining enterprise. That was an overarching thing. So I would have done any business, I guess, which would do this. But one of the things, obviously, while we're going through, I saw Google come from nothing when I was using Netscape and many search engines at the time, Mosaic and all these things, to Google, and saw Google become very big. Then I saw that there's a difference in enterprises, which are, some are services and oriented companies or people, and some are IP-based companies. IP-based or intellectual property-based companies, that's what I mean. So ideas-based and disruptive technology-based companies. When you pursue disruptive technology-based companies, the wealth you can create and the value you can create can be exponential. So when we started our company, we went to the market and said, okay, I want to raise money. I don't have the money to run the whole show, so I had to go to investors who are Australians here. And I want to ask them, okay, please put some money in and I'll give you this much share. So when I really started, probably worth $1 million, okay, that's how they valued it. I mean, I don't know why it is $1 million, nobody has an answer for it. I think more so that they just had 600, 700,000 to invest and they want 25% stake in the company. More like that, But today, if it's worth 70 million, there's no way you can make 70 million worth of company by just doing services and things like that.
Yeah.
So we had to have disruptive invention, and hopefully the 70 million becomes 700 million tomorrow. That's my job now, to take to the next rung of the evolution.
Yeah.
So the aim was always about disruptive technology, but marry it with the kind of and entrepreneurial ambitions that it should become a self-sustaining enterprise, which comes from my father. That's kind of an experiment, if you want.
Right.
Sometimes you can have, disruptive technology becomes nothing, or sometimes it can come in, somebody acquires very quickly, and you don't really create a business.
Right.
Many things can happen. In my career, at least, it's actually happening the way I thought it should happen, because today, 40 people work in the company, about 25 people in India, about 15 people in Australia and elsewhere. When you look at it, these people build their homes, when, through Sensor, long time ago. They had 1, 2, 3 kids. And I've seen that go through that process, and they're like a bit of family that we grew together. So that was part of the experience I wanted, because I saw my father go through that.
Okay.
But then I also didn't want to do a business which is not scalable globally. I wanted to pick a business that is disruptive and it can go anywhere in the world.
Okay.
And somehow it all came together through Sensor. So I would have done some business, irrespective of what it would have been. But obviously I wanted to do business where innovation is coming from me and my research and my students' research. So it's a lot more fun, because we are coming up with the breakthrough ideas. And we're then taking it to the market, and then we're having a lot of fun creating all these things. So it looks nice now, but it was actually very.
You need to put a lot of effort, In your conversation, I heard a lot about your father. So I think he's very much inspiration to you.
Yes.
He gave much more inspiration to you. So tell me about him. What exactly? What inspiration he gave to you?
He's. We used to have, some of my friends, when we used to have debates about these things. There are famous people who are great, okay? But not all great people may become famous. Right? Some great people become famous. So I would class my father as one of those great people who didn't become famous like, most people would know about.
Right.
But in greatness is an idea. Greatness is about an attitude. Right? Greatness is about, creating, inspiring others and all this. He is no less than anyone else in the world. Okay. So when you look to his life, he was his mom died when he was 11 days old.
Mm.
He grew up drinking milk of beggars because his father couldn't find anybody else to sustain him at the time. His grandma finally took care of him, and so he kind of went through life which is a lot harder and harsher than we can ever imagine.
Mm.
But he kind of maneuvered all the time, and he was so sensitive throughout his life that he always wanted to help people, want to contribute to them and all that. So I grew with, by the time I was born, he was a chemical engineer already.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw him create at least 3 or 4 enterprises before he passed away. And he was not a rich man, he was just extremely poor. But he kind of came up with ideas from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it fascinated me. Every time he tells a story about, he started a school and he ran the school for 25 years. My mom was the principal of it.
Mm.
And the school was called Koteyala Memorial High School. And he created a bank. And he created a bank from chit funds.
Mm.
There are many people who do chit funds in India, but nobody converts it into a bank.
Mm.
But he converted into a bank. And it's called Panchamukhi Bank because 5 guys did it.
Mm-hmm.
And that bank created the funds that he needed to start a chemical company.
Mm.
And after he really matured that chemical company, he then went on to real estate and a couple of other things. So when I really saw him grow through that, his biggest pride, whenever I used to go to India or have a chat with him, the biggest pride would be 2,000 people work in the enterprises that I started, or some big number like that. And he used to always feel proud and pride in that. And that kind of thing always felt like he values entrepreneurship. So obviously for me, whom I'm always there to impress him and try to make him happy, I would say, I would like to do something like that and maybe even take it to the next level, which is, based on the foundations that he has set up. So, and one very important thing he also did is that he never wanted us to inherit his wealth. He was saying, you excel in whatever you are doing. Of course, whatever I build, if I'm not there here, might come to you.
Then what's happening with his existing companies?
Because he's a good man, he really had partners who were looking after it.
Okay.
Of course, I'm one of the board members and I go and look after businesses or advise on things. But they sustained 10 years after his life and they're still going strong. So it's the kind of stuff he inspired all of us to do. But because he encouraged us to become the best at whatever we do and whatever we like, that helped me to focus on my studies, my ideas, and come up with a company like what we have just done. So he's also one other great thing about him is that he's almost a genius in instilling self-confidence. Because when I failed the subjects and I was not able to get through the exams, he would sit every day with me in the morning when we used to have tea and coffee, and he would tell me about Swami Vivekananda or Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, or he would bring all these inspirational books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, or 7 Habits of Great, Most Effective Leaders. He would read literally with me just to motivate me that you can also be something.
Do you think those readings helped you?
Oh yes. The 2 things. Readings. His focus on instilling confidence in me just showed the amount of affection and love he had. So, irrespective of what he was saying, the implicit, affectionate, message that is coming from him just creates the impulse in you to say,
right,
I cannot really disappoint this man. We have to do something to make him happy.
Right.
That was one level. And of course the readings themselves meant that I actually went and read a lot of those books myself. And I tried to go into all the teachings of all the gurus, and I had a phase in life where I did all that.
Okay.
And came out of it to say, I understand all that, but I still had to karma yoga like a panne. So we had to do the work.
Yeah.
So I came back, but so that gives you a bit of a background. He's an extraordinary individual, who will inspire generations. And if I succeed if I can inspire a few more, that means that chain is continuing.
So, what are the challenges you faced with your company when you started Sensen Networks? So, you told it's 3 years of hard work. Is it?
I would say
It's
10
more?
years of hard
10 years. Oh my God.
Because when I started, it was 2007. It is 2017.
So, of course, you initially you might have faced a lot of problems or challenges. What kind of challenges you faced and how did you overcome all those?
So, if you look at the background, I never worked in a company. I just was PhD, went to Harvard, came back, did postdoc at University of Melbourne, was doing research. So when you never ran a company, never worked in a company, you actually don't know how to build a company. So a lot of inexperience is there with you.
Right.
But obviously it is counteracted with passion that you have to do something. So there are amazing amount of mistakes you will do when you start. Because everything is like a guesswork,
Right.
You don't. So you invent something, for example, and you want to go into a customer and say, "I want to sell this." How much do you price? I don't know
You
how
don't
to
know.
ask for money.
Marketing, you don't know marketing.
Marketing, sales, productization, many things. Okay.
Yeah.
But even before that, when I was trying to do a spin-off from a university, which is a big thing because I'm using the resources provided by the university,
Okay.
which is my salaries, the electricity, the internet, my students, their scholarships, and grants that I acquire. It's all because university is there. I'm getting all that,
Yeah.
and I invent something. Now, how do you take it out of that university and build a private enterprise? It's a non-trivial exercise because there will be lawyers, there will be people who are saying university should own this IP, but they also want to commercialize this IP. That's one group of things you have to deal with. The other group of issues that we were dealing with is that I was a disruptor because I came in from outside the culture of that university. I was young, so not everybody is comfortable with that idea that why did he become a professor and not me? And a lot of people are professors, are teachers, are very good teachers there, and they value teaching more than any other activity. So in their mind, a professor or a lecturer's job is only to teach. Anything else, commercialization, all secondary activities.
Right.
But I came with a reverse idea, which saying commercializing research is the primary agenda. We should not, teaching you are all doing anyway, so I don't need to join you.
Right.
That created a lot of tensions, and I'm an outsider. So you had to learn to grow thick skin and deal with everyday challenges. All good people, I don't have any personal grudge on anyone, but at the time it was tough. The people think different things, talk different things, and they're uncomfortable.
Because your target is different. You're aiming for your target.
I had to do a spin-off. That was my clear agenda. So I had to keep doing this. Then the second thing is, how do you fund a company? Where does the money come from? You have to pay salaries, right? So, for many years while I was trying to spin off from the university, the single most important goal was to convince a private investor or a bank or an investment firm or a venture capitalist to say, okay, your idea is great, I want to put this money in. That's non-trivial too. It's a, somebody writing a check of $1 million is not easy. People will think a million times before they do it. Then Australia is particularly hard. We hear the stories in US that two students come out of the university and they get this $10 million from this.
Yeah.
Stories are fascinating, and you want to do that. But
But
not
in
easy
Australia,
to,
it's not easy for you.
It's very, very difficult at the time. Maybe it's a little bit. I hear that it's a little bit better now, but at the time when I was doing it, it was very tough. So getting money from someone. Then once you get the money, and this is what I didn't realize when I was taking the money. Once you get the money from someone, the moral and ethical pressure on you to perform is very, very high. Until it's not university money, grant money, it's like anybody's money.
Yeah.
But when you really
don't
get
feel
somebody
stress.
else's money,
Yeah.
then the moral responsibility goes up.
Yeah.
Then, because of all the conditions that you are in, I raised too little money. It's not enough to complete the vision that you have. But it just was a trigger to kick off the, everybody got excited that I got some investor who wants to invest. University wants to sign a deal, will come out. All right, I come out and do what? I had to pay my salary, I had to pay all the staff salaries. The money was just not sufficient. If I did a projection, it doesn't last a year. Okay, but the way the ambitious thinking will be, in 2 months we'll release the first prototype product, we'll demonstrate it, and we'll get orders, and we'll be done. Right? That's how you
Think.
experience thinking would be.
Yeah.
And we kind of store the plan, we convince the investor and all that. But the reality is, within 5 or 6 months, the money is gone. Then you are faced with a different challenge.
Yes.
I had a great professor job, which I left. Nobody would have taken me out of that job unless I kill someone. It's such secure jobs there. I quit and came out, and the money is running out, and the products are not ready. And most importantly, my father died in that same year.
Oh.
I just quit, and he was just going through this, and it was like a big sudden, the umbilical cord's kind of broken. You suddenly lose. Why am I doing all this stuff? That kind of questions come in.
Yeah.
So it was very, very tough at the time to kind of get out. Not enough money, so you're running out of it. So I actually picked up a job with University of Melbourne as a professor, and moved to Melbourne from Sydney because I knew more friends. And my wife and me pretty much were pumping month on month cash, whatever savings after our daily, expenses are met, it just used to go to company.
Okay.
And we did that for nearly 7-8 years, continuously, because we just couldn't raise capital.
Yeah.
So we had good kick start, okay, but there's no money to follow up.
Yeah.
So I sold properties, I was building some wealth, I moved everything into it. I was borrowing from friends. Now it becomes your problem now, how do
Yeah.
you run this? So,
Yeah.
so that funding was indeed one of the biggest challenges there. Now coming to the technology side, the biggest challenge I had was we're probably 10 years ahead of the market
Now?
at the time.
At that time. So you're talking about 10 years?
2006, 2007.
2006, okay.
I was talking about, taking data from surveillance cameras to do improvements in business. I was talking about improving a business process, whatever human used to do, a camera can do.
No one knows at that point of time.
No one,
Think
it was
about
like
it.
not making much sense. I had to convince them too much to say, hey, just think, they would fascinate the technology, but how much should I pay?
People generally can't believe it. Oh my God, this is going to happen. It's like, you're talking about a magic thing.
Correct. It was like magic.
Yeah.
And we were so far, so we are not in line with the market. So what happens is you are inventing technology which nobody buys. Okay, so it's a very hard struggle because you have to find this, buyer who is a visionary. Okay.
But Subash, do you got that kind of confidence from the day one on your innovation? Or like,
Yeah, I was a leading scientist in the field, so I knew that whatever I'm using is not to fool anyone. I know that this has real stuff. And failure is not an option.
Yeah.
Okay? And this is a very important point you raised, and this is where my historical issues with my studies came into, came handy, because I failed so many times.
You got habituated and you're strong enough.
You can come out of it.
You're
It's
strong
not,
enough.
A lot of people who never face failure and they suddenly start companies and this kind of thing, they can't cope with failure.
Exactly.
So almost my entire life prepared for this time where I know things can be hard and can be very hard, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But the internal confidence was there that if you stick to it and just and make sure that you do the right thing, eventually it has to turn. So basically, being out of touch with market created, not out of touch, but out of sync with market. So I'm projecting the need, and of course 10 years later the need actually became real today. That's why company could be worth 70 million or whatever. Everybody today talks about artificial intelligence and
Right.
video analytics and video became so ubiquitous. I was talking about this 10 years ago, and nobody was just listening to me at the time.
Yeah.
And of course there were some companies in US who were trying to talk and do things like what we did. And interestingly, that was one of the reasons we couldn't raise money in Australia, because they would say, scientists from MIT and Princeton, all these guys are coming out and starting companies. What chance have you got to really succeed in this market? And that was the pushback we used to get in 2006 and 7, because you're in Australia, you're too far away.
Okay.
How would you succeed, right?
Okay.
And that puts a lot of pressure on not able to raise money, because the people who are investors here just don't have the confidence in Australian innovation. That's what it means.
Okay. Yeah.
But this is where all the learnings from my father, all the confidence he gave comes to handy, because third parties will never have confidence in you until you have confidence in yourself.
Exactly.
So you got to sustain that hard time,
Right.
even if all the winds are against you. So it was a long, hard journey, and many things were not right about, are not perfect in starting the company. Not enough money, being in Australia, too far away, out of sync with our vision and technology and what market wants. But we just slowly, steadily kept building it, and we are here today.
So now how you came out of all this, when did it got clicked exactly? And
So for about 4 or 5 years, there was nothing. Meaning, I used to have $50,000 contract here, $30,000 contract there for the whole year. And we used to put a lot of resources to at least convert that customer to something big. But in 2011, actually on exactly Ugadi Day, for Telugu Ugadi Day, I got the contract from New South Wales government to provide 100 speed cameras. That was a mega project. It was like nothing, and a couple of $1 million order. Right? That's basically, we came out of the woods. It was immensely, proud that, okay, finally some customer believes that we can do something. And I mean, there are obviously a lot of things we did leading up to it, but that was because it's a government, they're tender driven, and there are many, multinational companies bidding for that order. We getting the order was a surprise, both for the market and for ourselves, because we also didn't believe we'll get it, because we didn't have the balance sheet or anything to get the order. We had technology, obviously.
Yeah.
But that created the trigger point for us to say, man, we are now in prime time.
Okay.
So we had to do a good job with delivering all that. Within 3-4 months of that, we won Abu Dhabi Airport,
Oh,
which was
straight away big deals.
client, yeah. Then we won Singapore Police contract.
Okay.
So within I would probably say 6 months, the 2011-12 time frame, right? I think I probably closed about $4 million worth of orders. And before that, it was 50,000, 100,000.
Why do you think there is a tremendous change? So till 2011, no one are actually looking at you.
Yeah.
But do you think because you got the NSW project, Abu Dhabi gave in. So you got the Abu Dhabi project came in. Do you think all this?
I mean, obviously, I'm
one
using them in my marketing, because once we got one, I would go
Yeah,
and
yeah,
tell
of
that,
course,
look.
yeah.
And the beauty with the government contracts is once you get one government contract,
That's
the
it.
second government feels less risky.
Yeah, right.
The third one feels even less risky. Like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
But these are all branded clients. So what was good
Exactly.
about them is that they are well recognized. If you say, I got an order from New South Wales government with Roads and Maritime Services, and for monitoring speed, and our technology is used to reduce road toll. That brand carries a long way. Singapore just gave an order based because RMS wrote a letter saying this is one of the best technologies we have seen. And so one is obviously triggering other ones, and we are using it. But the challenge for us was, we're too small a company. I probably had like 6 or 8 people, and I'm getting all these orders. I said, how the hell am I going to deliver this, right? And so credibility becomes very important. If you screw up any one of those deals, you just lost your face, and you lost credibility and everything.
Right.
And they're all diverse. One is speed enforcement, another is airport security, another is tolling, another is retail, another is museums. Like I was getting, because cameras are used everywhere, and we are basically giving intelligence in the camera. It can be used in libraries and museums or shopping centers or airports or anywhere. We just got everything.
Yeah.
And the problem why we got that is because I'm marketing everywhere and I didn't know which one is going to take off.
Oh, okay.
But all of them with all these branded clients came within like 6 months.
Suddenly, okay.
So we had a strategy meeting at the time and said, this is a good problem to have, but man, it is too big a problem to have. It's a good problem, too big a problem. And but that was a turning point.
We are talking about the technology. Let us know what exactly your technology, how it works, and who are your competitors at that time and even now. Do you think is it the unique technology you got it with you?
Yeah, I mean, there is a saying in the world, you know, even the most unique technology anybody works on, there should be at least 3 or 4 people already working on exactly same thing. We are like 7 billion people. There are always people working on something.
Right.
Okay. So there's a small probability, even the most unique idea you have, there'll always be somebody else who's working.
Who are working on it.
So we had to always, think from that angle that, in the very early days I used to think this is my idea, is the only idea in town. Nobody else would do it. Right?
Yeah.
That's not true. The more mature we become and see it, is there are always people there
who are working
or playing with similar ideas or similar kind of thoughts. So, if to answer the question, what do we do with technology? What is my core idea? So, core idea from that time to now never really wavered much. Okay? A lot of times businesses reinvent themselves and shift from things. But the core idea I was going after was that people have been putting cameras and sensors in the buildings, in the roads, in the streets, all with one aim, and only one aim. If something happens, they want to go back and review the recording.
Watch it, that's
Watch
it.
it. And then do some investigation and catch it. This is all they were doing.
Yeah.
But they were discounting the value of the data that CCTV was and cameras were capturing. And this was kind of unusual for them to think. Because if you look at what do people do in managing a business, like a retail store, manager has to know, are the queues building up too much? Is my repeat customer coming? How many people are coming? Is my staff matching the demand? He's just using his eyes and brain and common sense to make that call.
Yeah.
But he's also the one who's putting the CCTV to monitor theft.
Right.
But that is already capturing this information that he is personally going and trying to observe.
Right.
So my idea was very simple. If there is a really good software that can pick, that can tap into this video stream and extract this information, how many people, where are they, how many men, women, children, So business information that is embedded in the camera, if you can extract it and present it, then people can use the data. So CCTV can do its job.
Yeah.
But extracting business data creates a lot more value
to the business.
So the core idea was always about what kind of business information can I extract which has a lot of value to my customer. That was always the core idea. And then we started going into market with this idea to say, okay, we have this great platform. I can detect vehicles, I can detect people, I can detect their faces, I can read the number plate, I can tell this, I can tell that. All whatever humans would normally tell with their eyes, I'm trying to do it. But we don't know. There was no buyer. They saying, okay, it's great, cute, but how, what does it do for me? This kind of thing. So it took some time for us to figure out what those business use cases are, and the big problem that we solved for New South Wales Police was that people used to do detection of speeding by putting a radar gun behind a tree, or they hide it, a laser gun, and they point it and say, oh, that guy is speeding. There's always disputes on that. Because people will say, oh, you are not told me that you're watching me, or you'll tell that, how do you know your radar gun is working at the time? How do you prove it? So this was non-trivial, because a lot of court cases would be happening on that, and it's a nuisance. And as I said, there's no business out there that we know of who can address a diversity of use cases with a single piece of software. So as I said, we were dealing with reducing and road fatalities and providing solutions in that domain for road authorities. And for a casino customer, we are able to count the chips and tell them how much money people are betting.
So you also count the money, how much they're betting?
We are the only company who can do cash counting, but not cash, but chips.
Chip counting.
Chip
when you
count.
perform the crown.
Correct.
So where is this technology is being used at this point of time? Only in Australia or?
Crown Casino was the first customer we had who came up with the vision that they can solve some key business problems for themselves if somebody provides a technology to count the chips accurately.
Okay.
And they found us to be one of the best partners in the world whom they can work with. And I mean, while it is a gambling market and it has its interesting connotations for people, it's an amazing technology problem, because if you think about it, tens of people sit around a table and there are hundreds of that tables, and they go on a Friday night, they're all having fun, they're all betting things, and in real time I'm counting, okay, this guy bet $50, this guy bet $200, and I'm giving on a bet by bet basis that information to casino.
So if let's say on the table 10 people were playing at the same time, 10 people were betting at the same time, if there are hundreds of tables like this, so you're capturing each and every individual's bet, and you're saving it in your video streaming.
We kind of say that no gambler can get away from being watched. Okay, you want. We don't really go into privacy, or we don't know who they are. This is purely business information, because Crown wants to know which games are popular at what times, and they want to give better entertainment for people who are coming there to have fun. The downside of gambling, obviously, is there are people who are addicted and they can't control themselves, and there are programs to deal with that. But people who come from overseas, people who are here, they just want to have some fun, and that's a place to go, and a lot of people go there to have fun. And from our customer point of view, they want to say, are they providing the right product for the right customer base at the right time, so they maximize their own business outcomes. And the core information that they cannot get from anyone else and anywhere else is counting the cash floating on the table 100% accurately for every game of every betting guy. And that when they posed the problem, it was one of the most challenging problems that we could pick up, and that excited all our technical guys. But business is also big, because if you go to Las Vegas, there are many casinos, hundreds of casinos, and throughout the world there are tens of thousands of tables like that. So we could see the potential this product can have, and we have few patents on that for our invention. So it's like that, and we have been solving not just that, but some in some very secret projects we work with police, trying to track people, terrorists and things like that, which we don't come out, we don't say anything about it, but so we take pride in the fact that we're solving the problem which the customer wants, and in the way that they need it, so that it can be very effective in their operations.
First, do you think if you're in India, you would have achieved what you planned till now?
Yeah, I think I heard a lot of great stories in India right now. That there's a lot of entrepreneurial energy and activity and encouragement from the universities to do it. They're coming up, and people think that it's the next big Silicon Valley can happen there. But one interesting issue is there with India, is that it's very difficult for them to focus on global problems when they are in India surrounded by Indian problems.
Okay.
Right? So for example, they would not know. Yeah.
Apart from India.
Yeah. So they had to. Maybe it is good, because they may have to do startups for Indian problems, but then the commercial realities will be different. Okay, that's the issue with that. So it's an interesting challenge. The entrepreneurs have to figure out a way to solve it.
Yeah.
A lot of entrepreneurial successful companies in India tend to copy a service or a feature like and then do it in India. Like Flipkart did what Amazon did, but for India. But all the trick lies in execution. You can have an idea to do it, but you have to execute it. Like that, there are a lot more copies there. Very difficult to see. I have not yet seen, a Nokia coming from India or a big product company coming from India, and that relates to the culture that is around it. The entrepreneurs who are successful are mostly in services, so they have contacts in services. So it will happen one day, I'm pretty sure, but that's one of the challenges. One thing I do want to say, which has been unique in Australia and maybe in most Western countries, is that we get a fair go if we are genuinely coming up with an idea. Okay? I'm not sure about how that would happen in India. For example, for a company that is a startup with a balance sheet that barely can pay salaries on a consistent way to its employees, getting an order from a government agency, that too for a road safety application,
Very hard.
I don't think it would be possible in India. The risk perceived by the people who are approving the tender would be very, very high. So they would never give it. They would probably ask you to work with some other government agency, and so it's very difficult for me to see how I would have formed this company in India. In the same context, trying to get an order from Abu Dhabi when we're a very small company somewhere. Let's say the same company was in India, would Abu Dhabi airport give an order to me? Very unlikely. Difficult to imagine. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that people here tend to give a go or take a risk on an unproven product.
Yeah.
But India doesn't do that. India wants to have
Proven.
100% working product. Okay? They just want to take it and use it. That's the mindset of the people there. And they don't want to take the risk of giving an order to somewhere where they think it may or may not work, and there's a chance it won't work, then they'll never go there. So certain type of startups, that's why it can never happen from India.
Yeah.
And some things can happen.
Yeah. Now India is going digital. There is a lot of things happening in India in digital media market and all. So I think, where do you see your company taking all this kind of, the sensor networks, innovations? Because I see there is a lot of potential. Of course, your market is having across the world, not only in
India
India.
is a huge market.
Yeah.
And we all know that.
What are your plans taking there?
We actually have some presence. Obviously, we have our development center in India, in Hyderabad. And I have 25 people there. Some of the best people I could find work in there. But as a market, it still needs time to adapt our technology. We actually have some installations in 5-star hotels, and people use it. But unless our technology becomes so proven and ready to go and at a very low cost, it won't get there. Or India should become, value the technology and pay the right amount of money, right? So this is the gap. So either we should make it really, really affordable, or they should be willing to pay enough for it right now. So there will be interesting projects and ad hoc opportunities. But it will be slow. That's my expectation.
So, in your whole life, whom do you think are your inspirational personalities?
Top of the list is my father, obviously.
Father.
Okay. But I had the good fortune to work with and interact with a lot of leaders. When I say leaders, they are influential people. They doesn't mean a political leader or these things. But when I went to Harvard, I worked with a person called Roger Brockett. and he was one of the leading scientists in control systems and signal theory at the time. Right? I worked with someone called Yaakov Bar Shalom in Connecticut. He was from, he did his PhD from Princeton and is the world leading authority there. And I had a lot of mentoring from Professor Rob Evans in University of Melbourne. And I learned a lot of leadership skills from there. Okay. And I had, I had one special person, especially in my startup journey, called Satish Gupta. And he is from Silicon Valley, and he started a company himself, and he was part of many other startups. So he actually took, he almost, he's like a father figure for me. And he kind of came into my life around the time my father died. And he was in the journey for the rest of this journey, and he just resigned about a year ago from active role in the Sensen. And before all these people, there was one person who pretty much gave me a booster in my entrepreneurial journey, and that is G.V. Prasad from Reddy Labs. So before I started any company and even the idea, I just was talking to him that, look, I have these great thoughts about how to take the algorithms and technology that I'm building in defense, and I want to, move into this startup. He actually wrote a check of $100,000 when I had nothing. Okay? He only said, I'll put the same amount of money you will put. That's all. Okay, that was the only condition. And I took that to my father and said, look, G.V. Prasad from Reddy Labs is, has given this proposal. They said, okay, I will give you some money to kickstart.
So
But
to start with this Sensen
Sensor Networks. So the even before the university kind of gave me the platform, the origins were in G.V. Prasad, kind of showing confidence in me that you have some potential.
He has faith in you.
He had faith in me. I didn't interact with him a lot. It was maybe 1 or 2 interactions. But he was obviously at that time looking at being an angel investor into young startups, and I was just lucky to be around that time. And he told me, one major thing. He said, whatever you do, think big. Okay, that was his main thing. So when I get kind of distracted with small problems, day-to-day problems, I had to take a step back and just say, think big. And that we have to keep that perspective in life. So yeah, these are some amazing people in my life, and everyone taught a different aspect which I could pick up. And obviously the top of the list, is always my dad, who inspired everything. But all these people played a big role.
Coming to your personal life, tell something about your family.
So I have a wonderful wife, Lalita, okay? And I don't think I would have done anything in entrepreneurship or even my PhD stuff.
Is she the one whom you told back in Hyderabad?
No, she was not the one. She was unfortunately not. But she knows about my dabblings with other people. But before I settled down, but she's an amazing lady. And one of the things that I have to appreciate, and most people don't appreciate, is it's easy for me because I am in the technology to understand what's coming and what is the level of risk we're taking.
Yes.
But for her, she's just caring about the husband and family.
Yeah.
For her to kind of commit resources and time and write off houses and her salary and anything that comes in the way to a startup is extraordinary, because when you don't understand, it doesn't make sense at all. When I am at least understanding what is going on, and I think I'm understanding, I can say, oh, don't worry, it will be okay, or it will pay a return. So I had to appreciate that, and she backed me a lot in all of it. So that's very important. And we have 2 wonderful kids. One, my son, Swapnil, and Sneha, which is my daughter. My daughter is eldest, and both are going through their year 11 and 12. And my daughter, always fancies herself to be fighting for rights of other people and saving other people from trouble. I'm saying, she may become, she fancies herself to be a lawyer or or fighting or working for a WHO or some organizations like that. And I said, look, if that's a passion, you should go there. And my son, fancies to be a cricketer, and he's working on it. Who knows, what they become, but we're given the freedom for them to do what they want to do.
So what do you do in free time? Like, do you party much or?
Yeah, free time, I play cricket in all the cricket season. I used to play with my son. Now he's outgrown my skills and he's doing other things. But I still play cricket in our community. I sponsored the cricket club as well through our company. More recently, I started participating in Telugu Association here because one of my friends, Srini Katta, who is the president, called me and said, "Why don't you join in?" So I started thinking maybe I should play a bit of a role. But I'm basically available to entrepreneurs, business owners, community people, anything socially people want to do. That's the way I spend time. I used to spend a lot of time reading books earlier, but that interest waned a little bit. More so because any book worth reading becomes a movie. So I just wait for the movie to come and watch it instead of reading the book.
So why you had to read and waste the time for days? You can watch in 2.5 hours.
So,
I heard
became like that.
I think you wrote some book, right?
Yes.
What is that regarding?
It's actually an academic book. I wrote many papers, like 150 papers as an academic, but as a culmination of all that, I wrote a book that unifies maybe 60, 70 years of research into one core principle. And the book is called Fundamentals of Object Tracking.
So if I read that, what I'll get?
I guess even, you probably need a PhD before you can read it. But whoever wants to read it will get all, that is all, the book will give all the skills and techniques they need to track a missile or an aircraft or a person moving in a video, that kind of thing. That's true. Even now for me, if I read it, I get a headache now because, I wrote it in the days when that was what was needed.
Yeah. Okay.
What is your final goal, Subash? Like, see that it's the startup which you started as a startup, and now you're telling it is 70 million worth, and just now it got into ASX. I can see how big it's going to be in future. The market is pretty good. Definitely, I can see that. I see a kind of lot of energy and your confidence that you have put into your faith or nothing. So what is your final goal? Where do you want to take this company, or what are your final ambitions to fulfill in?
So from a company perspective, as I refer to, the revolution of artificial intelligence just started.
Yes.
And it's lucky that I'm still surviving and created a company whose products are now in demand.
Yeah.
But what that means is that there is so much to come. So there will be flying drones, there will be robots moving, there will be cars driving themselves that we are seeing. There will be lots of services that go around this, a lot of products that then piggyback on it. I imagine there's enough to do for a lifetime in any one of those little domains that revolve in this. And given I'm in the technology wave and interestingly, I have a team who also believe the same way. I have 10 PhDs who work in my company. And they all fascinate themselves of making a computer understand human, interact with a human. They all dream of robots walking and serving coffees and stuff. So I'm sure we'll be progressively playing in products and roles that are in that space. So, until I'm really tired or I get bored, I don't see what other thing can be more interesting than the technology that I'm already working in. So it will go on for some time. And I guess as time evolves and the company becomes big enough that it doesn't need a visionary leader to market and sell its products or inspire the people downstream, I'll probably step away from the CEO role and some other people can come and run. But I'll probably stay close to technology for the rest of my life.
What are your happiest moments or what are your sad moments in your life?
The happiest moment was when my dad went with a box of sweets to all his friends to say my son became a professor. Because it's not because I didn't feel happy because I became a professor. I actually didn't care, but the happiness in his face and him is just very joyous for me. Yeah? I miss him a lot because of that, because he's no more now, and that's also the saddest moment, I would say, that when I lost him, and he also died in a untimely way. I missed it. And my mom used to be there. She did a lot, to the family as well, and her happiness is the big thing for me now. Now that my father's no longer there, but those are the two extremes of it. But nothing can take away the happiness of your newborns, your son coming into life, daughter coming into life, and now their life is going on. So now the happiness is moved beyond your achievements. Now you are now looking forward to the next generation and the community and all that. So that's the transitionary phase I'm in now. But if you want to keep the two extremes, the extreme happiness would be like when you love someone and they become very happy for whatever it is. That gives the best happiness. And when they're no more and suddenly they leave you, that's probably the saddest. Yeah.
Okay, thanks Subash. Thanks for your time once again. I wish you and your company grow big in future and wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thanks for having me here.